Dearest Queers, happy Monday morning. Good morning. How are you? I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad to see you. Thanks for being here this morning, today, this evening, whenever you're watching this. I'm Doolin. I'm a mentor and healer, and I work with queer and trans folks struggling with feelings of loneliness and disconnection. I bring a trauma-informed lens and a spiritual slant to my work. And this is the 12th episode of Dearest Queers. This is a live series inspired by you all's questions around loneliness and disconnection. And so we're talking about important things here and trying to help you all live your best relational lives. So before we get to today's question, I have a couple of announcements. The first is that today, Monday, September 14th, registration opens for my trans mentoring circles that begin the week of October 12th. I'm so excited for these circles. They all run 5 weeks each. They will have a max of 4 persons in each. They're broken down by age group. There are a couple of different time options during the week for each age group to just provide some options for timing and scheduling. So I will put a link below to the event page where you can check that out to register, so you can pick a time that works best for your schedule. The theme for the first round of these groups or circles is loneliness, and so we're going to use these groups to foster community and gain support and increase self-awareness and decrease our feelings of loneliness and disconnection and isolation right now. And even if you aren't walking around saying I feel lonely right now, if you are wanting to nurture community or gain self-awareness or just learn about yourself in relationship, these groups are also a great spot for you. So I know that there's some stigma and some stuff around the word loneliness, but also loneliness shows up in a lot of ways, as tiredness or feeling forgotten or not a priority. It shows up in a lot of ways, not always just the word I feel lonely. So just throwing that out there. Also, if I've been talking a lot about if you desire this type of support and community and blah blah blah, and if you aren't sure what you're looking for, what you desire, I'm holding an online workshop or forum next Sunday evening at 5 p.m. Central Daylight Time, where I'm gonna teach folks the grounding practice that I use to take these desires and things that I want or want to create in my life and how I ground them and anchor them in my body to bring them into the world. Then I made a post yesterday about a thing that I love about queer and trans folks so much is just how smart we are, and we love these ideas and we could just talk about this stuff all day, but when it comes to actually bringing it into the world, these things that we want, we need to be able to feel them in our bodies. We have to feel what it feels like. And so if you don't have a practice or you don't know or you're out of touch with your body or not embodied, this is the practice that I'm going to hold on Sunday will help you with that process. So I will put a link to register there as well if you want to do that. There'll also be a replay available, so if you can't attend live, I'd be happy to send you the recording of that as well. And so and in the post, I gave examples, the house that I moved into in July, lots of things that I've created in my life recently and how anchoring them in my body then brought them into the world. And I actually have an example from today. This morning I went to the DMV because I'm about to create and call in a little pickup truck for myself that I'm going to buy. And so I needed to switch my Minnesota driver's license to Wisconsin driver's license so that I can title a car in Wisconsin. And so I legally changed my name back in June. I got all of my documents updated with my legal name, not my birth certificate though, because Minnesota didn't require, they're just they allowed me to put whatever gender marker I wanted to on my driver's license and not have some of those the federal, a passport or whatever change. And so I saw that in Wisconsin I would need to have my birth certificate, which has my birth name and the sex that I was assigned at birth. And so I had some anxiety about that. Here I'm in this new state. I don't know what their laws are. Well, I do know what their laws are. And I was like, well, shit. I have my Minnesota driver's license with the which I chose a male gender marker on my driver's license for ease of moving through the world, even though I do not identify as a man. And so yeah, so I had some anxiety about that. Was oh man, is this gonna whatever? Are they gonna cause me trouble here? I'm in rural Wisconsin. I'm gonna go down to Janesville and Rock County, Wisconsin, as a trans person or whatever. But I really worked with myself around, just calling in ease and safety and knowing that yeah, I just like put out the energy of like ease and safety into this interaction, and I really invited in and asked for just a human to like work with me, and that like even if these laws are in place, the like the laws of the universe and the things that like they are above man's law. And so yeah, and so really anchored into that the past few days, knowing that I was going in this morning, and so went in. And the woman that I worked with, I like gave her all my documents. I like gave her my birth certificate and my driver's license and my name change order, court order name change. And she, just like in a moment, or for she did ask me if I had a letter from a doctor about a like sex change, and I said no, I did not, because Minnesota doesn't require that to put whatever gender marker on the driver's license. And she said, okay, great. Like, she's like, I don't really know what the laws are in Wisconsin anyway. She was like, some people come in with them, some people don't. And she was like, but like, I don't want to have to make you come back, so I'm just gonna go ahead and like, and sort of like see you and honor what you had marked here. And if they have a problem with it, they know where to find me. And I was like, amazed. Like, here's fucking Angie at the like Janesville DMV who just, and that was it. It was a very like easeful, and it just like was smooth, and that was it. I got what I needed and like moved along. So I just thought that this morning was like a really concrete example of the ways that um, the ways that we can impact how we like move through the world and how the world responds to us like in kind. So just wanted to like share that as an example. That practice, that is exactly what I'm going to be talking about on Sunday, is how to like root that in our body and like put that out in the world, so that that is what comes back to us. So that's next Sunday. And then beginning in October, I'm going to be starting a Dearest Queers monthly membership. And so if you've been loving these videos but are wanting to go deeper or like work with me in a more like a deeper one-on-one way, there's going to be an opportunity starting for that in October. So they're going to be like weekly meditations or like worksheets that go along with each video or each topic. There's going to be a group community forum, so you can be in community with folks talking about these things. You can ask questions after the videos or in between and get support from me and answers and from other folks. And then they're going to be doing a monthly mentoring call in that group as well, where you can receive in real time support from me as well. So more information coming about that, but I'm very excited about that. I love doing these videos. I'm excited to offer the trans mentoring circles, but also am like excited to keep offering content and space for folks who are not trans identified. And so there will be an opportunity for that upcoming. Okay, enough of the announcements. I'm gonna take a drink. So, today's question is inspired by some content that I put together. This afternoon, I'm presenting a workshop for the 7th Annual Trans Equity Summit, which is a free online summit for trans folks. It's an amazing resource. You could probably still register if you wanted, so if you're interested, let me know. It's related to like Minneapolis politics and resources, but also just a great place to meet amazing trans folks. And since I'd already put together the content and it like feels so relevant to like the theme of these videos and things I talk about, I wanted to like bring part of that here today. And so the question today is, what's the difference between individualism and self-sovereignty? And more importantly, I think the question that follows that, or that like first question sort of begs or leads to then, is how does caring for ourselves allow us to care for community? That's really, so like aside from all of the like technical definition language stuff, that's really like what I'm getting at with that question. So I'll walk through like a little bit of this today. I will say that some of the more like in-depth practices I'm going to do additional videos on, so this doesn't get too long. So it'll be a little sort of like teaser for portions on boundaries and accountability, which could easily be their own videos and like video series. So individualism then it's when we talk about being independent and self-reliant, it's very much part of like white supremacy culture and whiteness, like this idea that like we need to do everything on our own, and that includes like within that our own healing and our self-care. Like deeply embedded in a lot of this like love and light self-care like the themes of that, the vernacular, the energy behind that is that like we are responsible for ourselves. We need to do all of our healing. We must be perfect in order to like show up in community and relationship. And so there's that, and that's very, it's rooted in whiteness and white supremacy, that sort of individualism. It leads to competition over collaboration, and it really leads to a sense of like aloneness and isolation. And so that's, so individualism there. And then in sort of contrast to that, even though they're going to sound the same, so bear with me a little bit. So if we have individualism, like I'm alone, I'm self-reliant, I must do all these things by myself, including my own healing and care. Then self-sovereignty, I would say, is, claiming the right that we have as individuals to our bodily integrity, to our life choices, and like being the exclusive authority, like over our body and our mind. And although that those two things at face value sound the same, and I understand that, like both highly focus on the individual, the second, self-sovereignty, allows us to move from a place of power. So nowhere in the definition of self-sovereignty is the assumption that we have to do everything on our own. And when we claim what is ours, which includes the responsibility of healing the trauma that we've both experienced and inherited, like that's when we can move from this foundation of power. So we're claiming everything that belongs to us. Feelings, thoughts, sensations, all of that. And so that's how we begin to take ownership of our lives and bodies, and that's the very thing that allows us to be in relationship with others. That claiming, that moving from that place of power, that's the thing that allows us to then relate to others from that sovereign place. Individualism again, so it's this, I must do this on my own, I am alone. In order to survive, I have to do and be better than other folks. In self-sovereignty, it's like I am my own entity, and I am part of a larger ecosystem, and I need others in order to survive and thrive. It's both there. I am my own entity, and I absolutely need and rely on others in order to survive. So what does it mean to be a self-sovereign being, then? So intimacy and relationship with oneself, so being aware of your thoughts, feelings, and sensations. Your ability to identify what your needs and wants and desires are, so be able to identify and state what those are. Being responsible for your own healing, which I stated already. So even if you hold a marginalized identity and you are not responsible for your experiences of trauma and oppression and marginalization in the world, we are still responsible for the healing of that pain that we hold. I'm not saying that the work stops there in terms of, folks in positions of power working to like end systemic violence. But again, I'm talking on the individual level, what our responsibility is. Also included in that is boundaries and consent practices, accountability practices, and understanding our impact as individuals as part of a community or collective, or like being a relational being. So if we need others to survive and thrive, like how am I showing up in those communities and in those relational spaces, and what is my impact there? So not just like how am I impacted by the world outside of me, but how am I also impacting these ecosystems that I am a part of? And so I often talk about this like bucket analogy, the like holy bucket analogy, and not holy as in like divine, holy as in cannot hold water. And so, if we don't have our foundational practices, or we haven't like carved out this space for ourselves as a sovereign being and have these practices that I just named in place to begin to sort of build this foundation and container, we don't have anything to hold the care that is coming our way. And so even though, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, I mentioned this, like the myth about that we have to fully love ourselves in order to receive love, which is not true. And at the same time, how much we show up for ourselves is directly related to our ability to show up for other folks. So like the like level at which we love ourselves is also the level at which we can like receive that and engage in at that level. So though like it doesn't have to be a perfect practice, because this individual and community or in community care, this is a reciprocal, dynamic, ongoing thing, it is also absolutely true that what our ability to hold for ourselves is what we're able to hold for other people. And so the practices, so two practices that I'm going to talk about specifically in my workshop this afternoon are the practices of boundaries and accountability, and how those really begin to like carve out space for this container that we can then show up into these community and communal settings with. And so I will, I think that those will be great videos, like standalone after this. Because like I said, I could talk forever about boundaries and accountability. They are important and ongoing and like robust practices. But self-sovereignty and community care, right? So they're dynamic reciprocal processes. Although if we're showing up in community with holes in our bucket, which is fine because we are relational communal beings and we need to be in relationship and community, but the question always is how do we begin to root our practice in ourselves, bring this mindfulness and awareness to our like thoughts, sensations, and feelings, begin to understand how we are relating to other people, allow people to be mirrors for us in like whatever's coming up, being responsible for our own healing in the ways that we do show up, in order to both provide and receive care. And that, boundaries really like knowing what belongs to us and what doesn't, which we'll talk more about in another session. But really developing relationship with self, that's that like self-sovereignty piece. And not as in I'm responsible for all of this and must do this alone, but like these are the things that belong to me, and because they belong to me, I'm going to care for them, and so I can care for other folks then as well. So that's what I have today on individualism versus self-sovereignty. Like I said, I could like talk about boundaries and accountability all day, and will at a different point expound upon those. But if you know of someone you think would like love to hear this sort of like crash course 101 in the difference between individualism and self-sovereignty, I'd love for you to share this. Or someone who might be interested in the trans mentoring circles, registration opens today. You can find me on Instagram at Doolin, or the videos are also posted on YouTube at the same handle, Doolin. And so I'm thinking about all of you right now. I hope you are safe and taking care of yourselves, and reaching out for that community care. I love you all very much, and I will see you next week.